going on, guys? Well, we got the Rhino frame sitting out here. This is going to be a reintroduction of this project because changing a lot of things about it and simplifying it. Pretty much the thing with this thing is going to be using stuff I have, making things work. And that's pretty much the beginnings of my channel, was making stuff fit in places it wasn't supposed to be. And so that's what I'm going to do with this. It's going to be made out of, junk pile, junk car, and I am going to buy a brand new engine for it, but maybe some new seats or make some seats, whatever. But we're going to use the engine turned into a transmission. I'm going to use this, and I'm going to get I'm not going to get a Predator engine. I'm looking at one on eBay that is just like a Predator engine. It's a 420cc, and it has electric start. And I think they're $300 delivered to the house. And they're not California emissions, so they have a little bit more horsepower than the Predator engines. The Predator engines have lower compression, so that you have more of a complete burn, so that's why they're lower on horsepower. But the alternator out of the black Saturn, I'm going to hook that up because the engine does not have a charging system. It has a starter, but not a charging system. And I like to run lights and things like that on here, and even if it did, it wouldn't be suitable to do what I want to do. This thing here definitely needs cleaned up. This thing is like behind the engine, like down below, so it got anything the engine leaked, ran on it. I have a centrifugal clutch already. I bought this years ago, and I actually had like a bolt pattern drilled into it to put a pulley on it. This is brand new. It doesn't look it, but it's brand new. It's a heavy duty 1-inch bore, fits right on the engine. Engagement is around, I think it was 2200 RPM. That's the engagement on it. And pretty much that'll go on the engine. I'm looking at trying to do something with this to run the alternator, and I'm thinking like make this so it fits down inside of it. And then all I gotta do is make an alternator bracket, get a belt. And then, I think this is, from what I looked up this thing again, and I think it's 35 chain, so I have to have a sprocket. This is also 1 inch, same as the engine, and I have to have a 35 chain sprocket for that. I'm not going to do suspension. There's a lot of reasons why I'm not going to, and one is expense. You buy shocks, maybe the right length, but they're not strong enough, or they're too strong. I don't want to get into worrying about making some kind of swing arm. I just want to make some kind of, complete this frame back or something, and make a straight axle. And another reason I'm not doing suspension is all I got to do is just mount this transmission in, make sure everything runs true, everything has good clearances. I don't have to worry about the suspension traveling in the chain tension. Another thing with the suspension, I can mount whatever kind of steering system in here. I won't have to worry about where the hinging points are on the tie rods. Because if it's in a fixed position, it'll turn properly. If it has, if you don't have things set up properly, when the suspension travels, you'll have the tire buckling, and you'll have, it won't steer right. Or you load it up with passengers, and then the steering's going to be buckled. You'll have like toe in or toe out conditions. So that's not gonna have suspension. I'm going to use the steering column out of the Saturn View. It has a power steering unit bolted on it, and you can go to Keith Fleming. He has a video where he's using one of these electronic power steering units in one of his UTVs. Pretty much 12 volt in, you have a ground, and then there's these little wires, which he bought a kit off of eBay that uses a potentiometer. And pretty much what happens with this is that at low speeds, the computer controls this thing. And the computer in the car controls this thing. At low speeds, you have full capability power steering. And then as you increase speed, it reduces the amount of power steering. So that way you don't, just grab the wheel and flip it into a ditch. I'm not sure if I'm going to buy the potentiometer thing. I might just put some kind of resistor on here so that it just has a fixed level of power steering. So it will have power steering just because I have it. If this steering column did not have it, I'd still be using the steering column. It just, if I have this thing, might as well use it. Here's the U-joints for the steering. One thing that's kind of neat is, let's see if it does it while I pick it up, but it's telescopic, so it does give you a certain amount of adjustment when I stick it in here. I'll have some adjustable length to it. Either that, if it doesn't work, I might have to cut it, weld in a shaft to make make it longer or shorter or whatever. This is the rack and pinion out of the Saturn. I don't know if I can use it. It's really long, but at the same time, if I don't have suspension, it's not going to matter about where these points come out. I went ahead and just cut them off, cut the outer tie rod off, because I will not be able to use this on my spindles. So I'm kind of looking at making a new tie rod here, or just welding the tie rod end on it, something of that nature. May or may not. I already had this thing kind of in the frame. The ideal place for it to be was in this little boxed area right here. Would be the best place for it, but it's not going to fit with these on. So I'm kind of looking at maybe cutting these off, and I'll use like U-bolts to hold it down, or something like that. The gear shifter, of course, this is just this transmission, and all the gears, including reverse, is on one shifter. So all it has to do is click back and forth. So I'll go over here to the Saturn. I haven't got it out yet, but I'll show you guys what my plan is. This has a floor shifter, and I think I'm going to use this as my shifter, and pretty much it'll just, you just go like this to shift it, and it, so it won't have full range. It'll just be clicking back and forth, and it's already set up on a push-pull configuration cable that goes out to the automatic transmission. And I'll just put a lever on my transmission and hook this cable to it, and I have a push-pull cable. So that'd be my plan with that. Things may change, I'm depending on what I do. If I can't use that rack and pinion, I have a gearbox. This was a four-wheel steering tractor, and it has the conventional teeth down at the bottom, but then there is a box right here, and as you steer it, it has like a plate on the side that rotates. And pretty much, like I said, if I can't use the rack and pinion I have, I'll use that. And what I'll do is actually just set up a normal four-wheeler steering shaft down in that has a little tab that has the tie rods hook up. I'll run it up and put a drag link over to that little box, and that little box will be mounted at the bottom of the steering column. So that might be something I might do as well if I don't want to mess with that rack. Things I can use this steering column for, I can use the ignition switch to turn on the engine, and turn the engine over, and I can even hook up the accessory hookups. You know, there's going to be these big wires here. The alternator, as far as hooking that up, this right here just goes to the battery, and then this one wire here energizes it. Now the key to these alternators is that you can't have it energized while you're cranking the engine. So when going back to the steering column, there'll be a wire coming off of here that you can make it so that it's only hot whenever it's in run. Whenever you're cranking it, it's not hot. So whenever the key returns back after you start it, power will go out to energize the alternator. You cannot have an alternator energized while you're cranking. You'll burn them out. The body on this thing is going to be made of wood. That's my plan. That's the way it's going to be. That's one of the things about this that I just throwed it on the scrap pile, because I started looking at body stuff, and even if somebody had a killer deal on something, it was busted up stuff, or you know, so I'm not going to put a rhino body on this, and I'm just going to make it out of wood. I'm thinking, you know, maybe Bondo and things like that, and paint it, and then basically it just look like it's fiberglassed. You know, just like a fiberglass body. I mean, if you look at golf carts, a lot of times those things are half wood. The seat is wood, the floor is wood, and then fiberglass, you know, panels. I don't see, or boats. You know, boats are fiberglass and wood. So I just don't see a reason that I can't do, you know, a wood body and even try to get some kind of, maybe a little bit of style out of it. I don't know. But, you know, I can make like a fender and then put another layer of wood around to give it some kind of fender flare. You know, something like that. This thing is not going to be like romping around dunes kind of thing. This is just running around the yard. It'll have a bed. You can put, you know, split lumber in the back, or haul off some branches. Get from one place to another kind of thing, like a golf cart. So I'm going to put four-wheeler tires on it, and I'll try to make some kind of seats that's well cushioned, you know, so, you know, because it won't have suspension. But there's the plans for what I'm going to do with this, and I guess I'll catch you guys later.